another contender, baby. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies are about to gritty all the way to the NBA Finals, man. And let me tell you why. This team last year had most of this roster intact. They had most of these guys already on the roster. What'd they do? They had a great series with the eventual champs. A lot of those games came right down to the wire, lost in 6, I believe. Really solid effort for a young team that hadn't really been there before. Now they come back. They have been there before. They'll have home court advantage against any team in the playoffs that isn't Denver, who half of the people I'm talking to right now don't think is a contender. So in that case, they're looking pretty good. Past that, Jaren Jackson Jr. is playing the best defense in the league right now, man. And it's like, you might say, oh, they don't have some true, great, pure 5 type, great defensive stopper. I mean, Steven Adams is cool, but not, top of the top tier. It's the West, man. Jokic is great, but if Jokic and the Nuggets aren't the team they end up facing in the conference finals, I'm not really scared of any other big man in this conference if I'm them. Sabonis is good, but am I sure Sacramento's going to get that far? I'm not sure. And even so, I think the Grizzlies have enough else that they would still beat them. And so with this Grizzlies team, good schemes, good coaching, good star player, great depth. I think they have a lot of lineup flexibility because a lot of these guys I could see getting playoff minutes. I think they're one of those teams that they could go 9 or 10 deep in a playoff game, or they could go 8 deep, but it could be different guys depending on the matchup. I just think there's so much there that works for them. They've maintained a lot of that depth they had last year, and the experience is only going to help them out. And a West that now, just after this trade deadline, some of the other teams down here have some real fresh faces. So this team, to me, is just more of the model of consistency. Had some bad stretches throughout this season, but even beyond that, they're still the 2nd seed. So overall, I think kind of the most consistent contender to me, because I think they're the team that would have the least chance to fall off. I could see a lot worse things happening to other teams on this list.
I'm going to take a page out of Dev's book. I'm going to label them dark horse, right? I really struggle. I want to say pretender so bad, but I'm going to say dark horse. My issue with the Grizzlies, and it's really just with young teams in general, is when they get to the playoffs, they just have those sporadic moments, man. And they had a lot of those sporadic moments last season where they would find themselves down 20 points, then they would come back, then they would be right back down 20 points. Or the Warriors would just, open the floodgates and just completely destroy them. That's just the kind of things that I worry about with a team that is so young and all their top talent are all young guys. That worries me. It's good that they had that experience last season. But I have a little more faith in them this year because they had that experience. Jaren Jackson's playing defense at an amazing level, like one of the best levels that we've seen in recent memories. Ja Morant always ascends his game in the postseason. Desmond Bane has taken another step forward. This team has what it takes, man. They do. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the finals, but they're definitely not one of those top teams in my mind. They're kind of in that Philadelphia territory. Some things would have to go right for them to make it to the finals, but they're definitely, I think, steps ahead of last season when they won 55 games, where we knew that they were a good team, but how would it translate to the playoffs? I think they're a better team this year, even if they may not win as many games, but they're kind of set for that postseason run.
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot with the Grizzlies. I do have them as contenders, but pretty much only for the reason because I think they can win the conference, but there is no way in that. There's just no way that they're beating the Celtics or the Bucks. There's no shot. So they're contenders because they can get to the finals, and I can't call them not contenders because I think they'll lose in the finals, but they can get there. So I'll call them dark horse contenders, but I don't think there's any shot they beat the Bucks or the Celtics if they get there. But I think due to the lack of a top-tier talent in the West, they have enough to challenge to get to that point. We know their defense is great. We know Jaren's doing his thing. Next to Steven Adams, they're going to be a great defensive duo again come playoff time. Biggest problem for me is their lack of shooting and their late-game offense. And those are two critical things for your offense come playoff time. And no disrespect to John Desmond Bane, but when you're talking about a NBA title contender, a team that's going to win a title, just solid, but his outside shot isn't great. And Desmond Bane's solid, and he's improved a lot as a shot creator. But I don't know if I have enough faith in Desmond Bane yet that I'm saying in Game 5 of the NBA Finals against the Bucks, he's going to start creating 2, 3, 4 shots in a row to make big buckets for you late in the fourth. I don't know if they're there yet. So they're contenders for me on the basis that I think they can get out of the conference, but they're very much dark horse contenders in the fact I would be very, very surprised if they end up winning the title, which seems very backwards, but I don't know how I can't call them contenders and think they can make the finals.
Yeah. It's like a lot of the teams that we are talking about as contenders, like they all at least have, most of them have 2 guys that down the stretch you kind of trust. Like at least we've seen them prove it in playoff situations. The Bucks is like, the Grizzlies is like, we know Ja's great, we know Bane is great too, but have they proven it to us enough times in the playoffs yet? Maybe this is the year that they break out and do it. Like it's definitely possible. We see Ja really take off down the stretch in playoff games, but we'd like to see it a little in the regular season too. Just so we can kind of get an idea of, okay, these guys can do it down the stretch.
I can definitely see the argument against them. This Western Conference, man, I think it's just the safe pick to me. I don't know. Betting on a team to go to the finals that's like not even going to get home court advantage in the first round, like that just don't feel right to me. I'm like, who's the team that's been consistent, has most of their guys like in? I like them a lot more just because I feel like every team does have some significant downside to them, but their upside to me just seems really high.
They're in a better spot than last year because they were so good last season. But I think we all kind of knew like, this is either the Suns conference or the Warriors conference. Like we kind of all had that idea pretty much from like December on, even as good as Memphis was. So they're in a better position. I guess it's just like prove it to us, like make us not think that we're crazy for calling y'all contenders.
Honestly, they're kind of like last year's Grizzlies or sort of this season's Cavs, I feel like, because that's the same thing you just said. It's like they got some talent. They've been so good, but I think everybody knows it's the Bucks or the Celtics conference. So they are going to have to go out and prove it for them to really be on that level. Exactly. So just seeing some parallels there, opposite sides of the bracket.
Definitely, which, hey, if you're a Cavaliers fan, this means you're doing pretty well this year, and you're definitely on the right track. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more NBA content, and we'll see you guys in the next one.